Welcome to Good Service. We are your hosts, Ben Chung
and Kevin's Huh.
Each week we'll be breaking bread and having real, raw, and vulnerable talks about life, faith, and everything in between, and always over a fire meal.
Thanks for joining our table today. Let's eat.
Folks, welcome back to Good Service, where we have good convos over good food. We are your hosts, Ben
and Kevin.
And we have two very special friends, guests in the pod. We have dancers, choreographers. We have Diny and Eileen Kim in the pod today.
Oh, and business owners.
Owners,
entrepreneurs,
all the good stuff.
Yes.
What's up, guys?
Hello.
Thank you for coming through. We've been waiting for this one for a long time.
Yes, we have.
And we're glad to have you guys.
Happy to be here.
Yes.
We're
We're so excited.
We know that you guys also had a very long day already. You had a 5 a.m. thing.
Oh my God.
And you're here.
Can you explain a little about the schedule? Like, why 5 a.m.?
Yeah, what's that all about?
So me and Diny are currently in a place right now where we're doing like studio ops, right? And so we're like present at the studio when it's open, which
What's
is
the
usually
studio for those who don't know what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So we have a little some. It's called Rūts Dance Studio out of
Hey.
Koreatown, LA. Hey, yeah. We opened in like 2019, so we've been operating for like 3.5 years for those of you guys that don't know.
Wow.
But yeah, so yeah, we run like dance classes every day and stuff. So we're there we work like during the day for the behind the scenes stuff, and then we're there at night when the studio is operating. And then we just haven't been able to quite say no to like our own personal jobs and stuff like that. And so we just like tack that on after studio hours.
Are you
But
allowed to tell the public what those jobs are?
Yeah, well, we're working on like a commercial thingy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
cool.
we'll share more about that once that's released.
Yes.
But just a lot of choreographing, you know? So, and like even like just teaching and stuff, like teaching class, we try not to let that go. So we're just tacking everything on.
Just doing everything.
All at the same time. So we just, that usually starts maybe after midnight.
Yeah.
So depending on the job, we just keep going till we're finished.
Wow.
But hey, we're
here.
happy and we're here.
Yeah,
And we're grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into any of the combos, we have a delicious, amazing spread
Heck.
Yes.
in front of us. Kevin, what are we having today?
So today we have Cook's Tortas, which shout out Edgar, the owner. I met him
Let's go,
today.
Edgar.
Amazing food. I've heard only good things. This is my first time having it, actually. Ben has had it in the past.
Yes.
So the reviews were good.
I guess.
And today we have the asada to the mojete to the barbecue pork.
okay.
We got some Diablo. The number wasn't something we liked, but however,
over
it's
that
very
one.
spicy. And we have I think like
That looks like
I
a
forgot how to say these.
caprese.
It's a cheese one.
The cheese one.
And then we have some fresh one that looks like grilled chicken. But either way, and then we got some of their, I believe it's called tech fries. I didn't ask them why they call it that. And then we have some sides right here, potato salad and macaroni salad.
Let's go.
It's gonna be
That
so
looks
delicious. So
really
we're
good.
gonna grab it, dig right in while we have the conversation.
Let's go.
So I know a lot of people people in our community have heard the story about y'all going into dance and, you know, the studio journey. But you know what's I thought this was really interesting. We got to know each other. I got to go to the grand opening of the new studio, and I went there for the prayer meeting specifically just so we could pray over y'all, new space, really excited. And then I remember Diny going right into the testimony of how the studio came to place. What's really interesting personally for me, I came all the way there to hear it because I was like, I want to hear this journey, how God's been blessing y'all, like how did this even happen in K-Town, all this stuff. And then specifically for some reason, timing wise, my family showed up and I had to go get them right at that moment. So I didn't get to hear it.
You're right. I remember
You're right.
this.
So now I get to hear it for the first time.
And
So
Ben gets to hear it for the third time.
the third time.
That's
love it.
more than 3 times.
I never
but
get
it's
sick of
okay.
it.
It's a good story.
By the way, this is spicy.
Yes.
He warned you. You
But
didn't choose the Diablo
It's
one.
good. I love it. I
Nice.
love the spice.
Dude, the peppers in there, I was a little scared for you.
No,
But
I love it.
anyways, so now as we're jumping into it, would love to know, because you guys are amazing dancers, amazing choreographers, amazing businesswomen, but it didn't start that way. So I'd love to know how it happened. Because to me also, you guys look so young. Like I have no idea, like age-wise either. You guys just look like you guys are like 19, 22.
Aww.
Wait, did we establish that you guys are sisters? I don't know if we've established.
Oh yeah,
they're sisters.
They're so confused right now.
No, and family, and family working together. That's like really rare.
It is very rare.
The fact that you guys don't like hate each other is rare. Like all this stuff, you know what I mean? Like I don't even know the age gap between you guys.
What is the age gap?
It's 2 years.
2 years.
2.5.
Yeah.
So she likes to sometimes reiterate, but yeah, 2 years.
Only when it's advantageous to me.
Got it. Okay, cool.
So jump in.
All right, I'm gonna let Diny say it because she is really detailed when it comes to the story. So, okay, where do I start? We opened in 2019, I think January 2019, and we operated for about a year, and COVID happened. So we just shut down for like 2 years because we didn't have an outdoor space. We weren't considered like an essential business. So we were just kind of having a hard time. I said Diny and Eileen and I were taking on like extra dance jobs to try to like pay for the rent and like kind of stay afloat. And I think at one point we decided, we're like, okay, we can't do this anymore. And we decided to close down. We made the decision, but we hadn't announced it to the public yet. And so we were kind of in the middle of processing like, how should we make this announcement? Should we post it on social media? And as we were kind of figuring that out, we found out that like 5 other dance studios all closed down within the same few weeks. And they were all announcing on their Instagram too. And we were like, oh my gosh, like everybody's losing their home and all these dance studios are closing down. And I think it made us really sad because we're like, oh man, we're gonna be another home that people lose. And so in the middle of all of that happening, there's a clothing store that's like attached to our studio, and the owner, she's like a grandma. She's been there for like, I don't know, like 10 years, super, super long time. And she said she's going to be there for another 10 years. So we kind of gave up on like taking over like her space. Cause when we first moved in, we're like, how can we be growth oriented? How can we expand? But yeah, one day during COVID, her daughter is a nurse in the COVID facility. Hospital, and so she would always babysit her granddaughter, and she didn't want to expose her to COVID, interacting with all the customers and things like that. So she ended up closing down shop. And after it closed down, the building owner called us and said, hey, like as you know, they closed down. There's an escape room that's attached to the back of the building, and they're like, they want to acquire the space and use it as an extra room. But he's like, I don't know why, but for some reason, I feel like I'm supposed to give it to you. And he just said it's a feeling. He said it's a spiritual feeling. He's not even Christian. He just kind of mentioned that he feels like it should be coming to us instead. And we're like, well, we literally can't afford it. We're about to close down because we can barely pay rent for the one space that we have. And it was a small space too. But then after him saying that to us, we're like, I don't think we can afford it. And then he's like, what if I give you like the next 2-3 months of rent for free?
Wow,
he really wanted y'all in there.
Do you still want it? I'm like, but why? Like, why would you do that? Because someone else is willing to pay for those 2-3 months, and they're already in your building. So what makes you to say no to them and say yes to us?
Wow.
Like in the worldly view, like economically, it doesn't make sense. So it made us think like, oh God, like, is this you? Like, this is so particular. And we kind of prayed about it and we talked to God about it, and we're like, you know what, like maybe we should do it. It felt like God was telling us to, Eileen likes to use this saying, like, prepare the room before the baby is born. And we're like, we almost felt like God was saying, before I give you all these things, you need to expand. While everyone's closing down, you're going to do the opposite because my kingdom is upside down. So invest everything you have, prepare this space, and I'm going to do a lot of things for you later on. And so just from that trust and faith, we decided to just go through with it. And in the dead middle of COVID, not knowing when we can open, we just started to do construction. And we expanded double the size.
Wow.
So that happened. Then we opened in November 2021. We went through a whole rebranding to Roots. And after that, just students started flooding in.
And we're like, where did they all come from? Because we didn't move locations. Like, they just kind of came all rushing in, and we just started popping off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like literally what we wouldn't have had the capacity to accommodate for all of them if we didn't do this during COVID. And it's been a year and a half since. And maybe in like February, I was just at the studio one day, and I'm like, I was looking at class. It was a capped class, and I'm like, wow, you know what? Like, I feel like we can expand soon. And it was just like a side comment I said. It wasn't anything I took super seriously, but I like kind of threw it out there to my mom. And I even forgot that I said it. But my mom, being the woman she is, she basically really like sewed those words deep in her heart, and she started praying for it for 3 days, like all day and night. She didn't even tell us she was doing it. She started praying for us for 3 days, and she kind of lives a couple blocks away from the studio, and she has the same drive home. And for the past like 10 years, she'll always drive by this one building, and she'll look at it and kind of represented her hopes and her dreams for us. So she'll look at it and be like, man, if Diny and Eileen's studio was in a place like that would be so amazing. It's so big, it's so nice, it's like an ideal dream location. Wow. She would always just look at it. And after the 3 days of prayer, she was making her same drive home, and she saw a giant 4-leaf sign on the building. Wow. She's like, in 10 years,
wow,
I've never seen this sign before. She got excited, and she called them. The landowner, like building owner, got back to us. We literally went to go see the space the next day. And
signed the papers like within like that week.
Wow.
So it just happened all so fast.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, after we saw it, he told us how much it's supposed to be, and we're like, ooh, we can't afford that. And he's like, well, what's your budget? I'll take it.
Wow.
And he just said it like it's nothing, like verbally.
Crazy.
Wow.
And we're like, what? Like, are you serious? Again, nothing's written on paper.
And you literally watched me, Diny, and my mom go.
Like, it's literally
I'm like, what? Yeah, it was crazy.
Whoa.
Yeah, and then we went home, and a couple of days later, they called me, and he's like, hey, we didn't sign anything yet, but we did talk a little bit, so I wanted to give you a call. There's 2 other people who want our space, and they're willing to pay the full asking price.
Wow.
He's like, I know you guys can't afford that. And he's like, but for some reason, I feel like I'm supposed to give it to you.
This is a
Same
different
words.
guy.
Different guy.
Different guy, same
3
words.
years
Same
later.
words.
Wow.
And I'm like,
That's wild.
wait, those words sound really familiar. And I had to
What
think
the-
back, and I was like, first expansion, second expansion,
Wow.
verbatim, same phrase.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my, I think I literally was like, are you serious? Like, are you being serious right now? And yeah, he's like, do you want to come sign the paperwork? And he's like, can you come in on Monday? And Monday was my birthday.
Wow.
So it felt like
Wow,
a big
what a
like
birthday
birthday
gift.
present from
Yeah.
God almost. So that was pretty cool. So that's basically the story. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's
yeah.
No, go
I'd
ahead.
like to add that,
Yeah.
like, it's just crazy. We talk about this really often now, but our first space, we started off like freaking small, like so freaking small. We fit about like 15 people total, like in a dance class. And then our second expansion, our max cap was around 30, so it was like right around double. And then now it's like almost 70. So it's just like, it's crazy to kind of be on this ride and just see like how our beginnings were very, very humble. And then just to see like in the little ways that God asked us, like, hey, can you trust me? Hey, can you step out in faith? Like, hey, can you try this even though it's risky? Like, to just see the fruitions of it, it's kind of wild. Yeah.
Was this something that you guys had dreamed about or had been praying for, to have a studio like this?
I think for us, it was like a very like way later after we retire when we can't dance anymore type of thing. And so it's actually funny because we, in the beginning, it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like a burden because we were like, we didn't even ask for this.
Sure,
Like, we're too young. Like, it was a mix with like imposter syndrome of like, who's even gonna care? Like, who are we to even create a space? Like, what the heck? And so it's just like a hodgepodge of feelings. But yeah, definitely like, yeah.
That's cool. And same for you, Diny? Like, it was just something that you thought was something farther down
Oh
the
yeah,
line?
we talked about it before. We're like, later on, it'd be nice to open a dance studio.
What do you guys, what do you guys feel that is then? Because I mean, it seems pretty clear that God's favor was with you guys and
Yeah.
is with you guys. And if this wasn't something that you guys thought was supposed to happen at this juncture in your life,
Yeah.
what do you guys feel is the reason and purpose for it? And why was it so, here you go, and like right now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I think our understanding of our career is very like two-dimensional. And so like even for dancers, right? Like most people think, hey, you pop off on Instagram somehow and then you like start teaching a lot and then like you like travel and then that's like the epitome of success. And then what do you do after that? Like hopefully you can direct or coach or like do something that doesn't require a physical body. And then, you know, it's like this like timeline of like, oh, as a dancer, this is what success looks like. And so for us, we were like, well, we want to do all of that. And then we can do the studio like later. But what God was kind of, I think, teaching us like through it all is like everything has a purpose and then everything also comes together. So for us, even though at the time we were like, this is a burden because it's so much work, it's taking away from our lives, like so much, blah, blah, blah. I think at the end of it all, it's kind of seeing that that's what the sacrifices that it took to kind of build what we have right now, and then to see how what we've built now bleeds into every aspect of our dancing and our career. Like there's so many ways where like meeting people, utilizing it, helping people, like impacting our city, but like all of that we feel like is our purpose and calling so fully now. Like we understand it now.
Yeah.
We just didn't see it
A couple years ago.
a couple years ago.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So when I went to the grand opening and you know, as I was just kind of observing just the energy, just
Yeah.
kind of seeing all the people kind of coming in and out, dancers that I recognized, people that I didn't know, and I just saw people from just coming off the street, just kind of poking their heads in and just curious. It felt like to me that this was more than a dance studio, you know what I mean? And especially the location where you're at, like you guys are literally in the heart of K-Town, across the street from HK Market, like this is a landmark. But I felt this sense of like, this is a place for people to find community, you know what I mean? And yeah, we're from the dance community, so we kind of like, we say that word all the time, but I felt it goes even deeper than dance community. I think it's just community in general. And I'm sure you guys can attest to people forming new friendships and relationships through the classes that you guys have, and people probably just come to like even like hang out and stuff like that. And I know, and the short time that I've gotten to know you guys, probably within, I mean, Eileen, I've known you for a few years, but we didn't really like start hanging till like the past year, right? But I just see that you guys have this heart to bring people together, and even the fact that you guys today were saying we don't want to sacrifice our dance jobs, but we know that we have this responsibility to run the studio, so willing to sacrifice sleep to like kind of do it both, because you guys still find it so important to build this community hub. Can you talk about that aspect of it? Because I'm sure you guys have probably realized this too. It's like, wow, I think this is more than a dance studio, and it's not riding off any hype, you know what I'm saying? It's not like you guys just won ABDC or something, and then it's like, yo, this is the studio from that crew. But it's like people, I mean, people, you guys have a following and things like that, but it's not a hype thing. It's something bigger than that. And I just feel like it revolves around the people, you know? So what are you guys' thoughts about community and bringing people together and stuff like that?
It's interesting that you say that, because I feel like our students, I think we've heard a couple people call our studio a hidden gem. And it's really, which is like such a nice thing to say, but it's really cool because we see students who like, maybe some of them have just never danced before, or some of them have been retired for like 10 years and like they feel really like insecure going back into dance classes. And many different types of people just come and they meet, and like I feel like it's just been very raw and authentic in the way that they just meet and hang out with each other. And for us, it's really cool to see that they meet, that we get to be a place where they meet, And then later we see them go to concerts together. They hang out outside of the studio. They have group chats to take classes together. And like, that's not something that we can like force anybody to have. So I think us just being able to focus on what kind of culture we want to provide for them so that we can provide an environment for that to happen has been really good. I think even us moving into this new space, something that Eileen and I have been talking about a lot is what does Roots mean to us outside of just being a dance studio? And a lot of it is it's very missional. It's a healing place. Like so many people come and they're like, they might be feeling like really sad, down, like stressed, like whatever they're feeling. Sometimes they're happy and that's great too. But when they come and then they find an outlet to find freedom and to just like let go and just find a happy place, I think is like such a healing place for people. So I think that's something that we've been noticing a lot more being around in the new space, especially.
You guys, so the studio was originally called what before it was Roots?
It was called Urban LA.
Urban LA. So why the change of name to Roots, and like why Roots?
Okay, well, I'll let you explain the Roots part because she loves talking about our mission statement. But Urban LA, we started off, it was just kind of like a meaning for like the city. Like we wanted to be like a center spot for just like bringing people together within K-Town, right? And K-Town, what better way is it to just describe it as like, this is like an urban city, all diverse, different backgrounds, different like races, ethnicities, like ages, whatever. And so we named it Urban LA. And then obviously we had that little like movement with the word urban. And so honestly, we were too small for people to actually care. So we actually didn't get much hate for it, but we
just flew under the radar with that.
Yeah, we were like, ooh, but then we also wanted to listen.
Actually, I don't know about that. What's wrong with the word urban?
I mean, it was just kind of a, because it relates a lot to like the red zone. It was the red zoning. Like during the BLM movement, so people were talking about how like there's certain words that are a little bit problematic, and even us calling our dance like hip hop, so because it's Black culture. So then people have this or had a lot of say into like, why are there no Black teachers? How come the Black history isn't being taught? So then it was even like, okay, maybe we don't even just call it hip hop. And then, but like, we don't want to call it urban either, because that like kind of talks about like the ghettos and things like that. So there's just a lot of conversation around that people just had issues with. So we're just like, we don't know what to call anything anymore because everyone's offended by everything.
Got it.
And I'm not trying to make light out of it, but there literally was like a lot of conversation.
Yeah.
And people had a lot of issues with that.
Got it.
I think the main issue was like urban was like an umbrella term for like the black community, like in terms of music or dance or like whatever it is. And so they just didn't like that umbrella term because they're like, well, what is this? And even in the music industry too, it's like someone would make a song and it's like a pop genre, right?
Yeah.
But then for some reason they'd get an award for it and it's like under an urban
Kind of like
music genre.
if
and
someone's
it's
saying something is Oriental.
Kind of along the lines of that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Because it would always make me feel like, what?
yeah, right.
Okay.
Treading dangerous waters here, but like
Got it,
yes.
got it.
So it's kind of like that, but yeah, I think it's very nuanced. Like there's so many layers to even that movement in itself. So it's we can talk about it for hours. But even with that, so it was just us being like, hey, like, do we want to be so firm in like what our mission was and what our purpose was with Urban LA, or do we want to like kind of go with the flow and see what comes out of that if we were to make changes? And our main thing was, we're not going to change it unless we find something that really resonates. And so we actually spent like a year just like during COVID, just like literally jotting down names, and half of them were so stupid.
What were some of the ones that hit the cutting room floor?
To be honest, I think I scratched it out of my brain because I was like, okay, this is traumatic. This isn't gonna work.
Throw it out there.
But yeah, so
I want to know.
I know. Okay, if I find the paper, I think of some, I'll let
You
you
should
know.
just post it up on the wall.
I'll text you and be like, yeah, this was
Movement muses.
I love it.
Kim's sister.
Oh, yes.
No.
No,
That would never happen.
Yeah, I remember one time we were like
Kim's the studio.
right next to Kim's Chung.
Yeah.
Oh my
Kim's
God.
studio.
Oh my God.
It's so good.
That's so good.
I would've went.
Should we change it? Should we change it to that?
Brand.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
At one point, we were like, what if we just take out the U, Urban?
Arbin. Ooh. I'm glad that didn't happen.
Good thing that didn't happen.
Yeah, more vowels are good.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, so thankfully we came up with the word roots. So that was like obviously just us thinking of like, okay, what's like our main value system? And it's like has a lot to do with like finding your roots, like discovering like being grounded in who you are and like having a safe place where you feel safe enough to actually explore that. Of course, it's underlyingly like your Christian faith too, and like just all of that put together.
Identity.
Dance, even like dance foundation, like finding your roots, identity, all of that kind of hodgepodge together. But yeah, that was like kind of our mission. And yeah. And then we didn't want to be basic, so we just spelled it differently. We added the U to make it look a little bit
I know. I
nicer.
thought, did it mean something else with that spelling?
It's not Rūts.
Okay.
Don't call it Rūts.
Yes, you need
Welcome to Rūts.
Don't do it.
The line over the U.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have people coming for job interviews like, I love Rūts Dance Studio.
Oh man, it's like immediately. No, thank you. There's something that you guys mentioned that I want to go back to, which was finding a free space of creating and doing what you love and having that. And I know that both of you guys love dancing. That's like even just hearing how you guys are describing. Oh yeah, we wanted a studio later because we love dance. And I am curious because I'm not a dancer. I'm not an art-driven person, actually. I'm like almost the opposite of that. I am a creator, but I create very differently. And so as someone that is sitting amongst a lot of dancers here, I love to hear from you guys, like, where does that fall into where art and like God and your love for dance kind of meet? Like, I'm curious how that all plays together for you guys.
That's a loaded question. I think for me, like, God is creator, right? So for me, like, when I create, I'm being like him. So it's a way for me to feel connected to him in a more intimate level that's not just like talking or like community talk, like church, praying, reading the word. Like, of course, that's so important. But I feel like if I get to connect with him in a creative level, like even just being like, hey, God, like, create with me, like, he is the source of all creation and all types of any type of creating. So then like him being able to share those things with me and to create with him and through him, I think helps me to feel more connected to God in that sense.
Wow.
But also just a way to just express myself in what stage and how I'm feeling, whether it's happy, whether it's sad, whatever emotion that I'm feeling. I feel like it helps me to be very like true and authentic, to be able to voice to God and be honest with how I'm feeling, instead of like putting a certain like persona or presence of what I'm supposed to be doing or what a Christian looks like. There's so many layers to it, but I think that for me, that's probably my answer.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
Which I agree 1,000%. To give like a different perspective, for me, I'm an Enneagram 3. So that means I'm always gonna be like talking about goals and like and dreams and stuff.
Does that mean you're a high achiever?
Yeah, high achiever. So something that like I think dance is to me, obviously like the creative aspect is always gonna be there. But to me, dance is something where I feel like people look at creative endeavors and they don't think it can be something that they can do for a living. And so there's just this discrepancy, you know? They're just like, okay, I like this as a hobby and like I like to express myself in this way, but I also need to financially sustain myself, and it just seems like two separate worlds. For me, it was like having to go to God as a college student and be like, God, I know that you're a good dad, and I know that you like can make anything happen, and I know you care about what I care about. So if this makes me happy, I'm gonna pursue it, and I know you got my back. And so like, which, I mean, lots of ups and downs, right? And like you just have to like go through the trenches too and like learn how to do that well. But it was like my way of trusting like, hey, God, you're a good dad. So I don't believe in this lifestyle of like, oh, I can't do what I love.
Can I double click on something?
Yeah.
When you said you have to go through the trenches, but get better at that, what does that mean? Because I know so many artists out there, whether it's dance or other things, when you're creating in that way, sure, there's a million ways to make money today and feel that financial security or whatever that people always talk about. But we all have things and bills and rent and other responsibilities that we have. How did you, in that trench moment, Can you talk about a trench moment? Like, what does that look like?
Okay, on a more like just like practical level, like obviously we just talked about finances. So like I think work ethic is huge. So like in order to pursue something creative, you obviously have to sustain yourself also somehow in the time that you're building this, and like you don't even know how long the building stage is gonna be, and so that can like take years, you know. So for me, like as a college student, I worked so many jobs. Like if you like corporate, I've worked full-time jobs, like 9 to 5s. I've worked like in the service industry, so I've worked restaurants and boba shops and all that good stuff.
Weirdest job you had?
Weirdest?
Or the most unlikely job that people don't know that you
I
had?
don't know. I've done like PA work on sets. I've done translator work, like
Translator work?
translator work,
Okay.
like on sets or just like on virtually. Like I don't know weird jobs.
No weird
Thankfully,
jobs?
You helped sell Serge? Massage
What was
chair?
the job
I mean that was my
hated
9
the
to
most?
5.
Your 9 to 5?
9 to
What, wait,
5.
what did you
Okay.
do in your 9 to 5? What was it?
So I worked in Chapa for a little, like every other Korean American.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah,
So
that
to
was
explain Java.
Chapa is like the fashion industry, right? So it's like
Okay.
in downtown LA,
Got it.
just like but straight up like sales, you know. So it's like customer service, a lot of customer service,
Nice.
but 9 to 5, straight 9 to 5. And then
She said massage chairs?
yeah, so do you know Serajam?
I don't know what that is.
It's like an old school like Korean big like massage chair company.
Okay.
Yeah, so I worked there, but that was just like also like admin. Yeah,
So
yeah.
the reason why I love like pausing to do those types of moments
Yeah.
is because one, to celebrate God,
Yeah.
and to also really like, it's just I've known you guys for a while now, and so like to me, I'm like, no wonder they're where they are today because of their obedience to God.
Yeah.
Like just straight up, like
Yeah.
you guys love him so much,
Yeah.
and of course he's gonna give you more.
Yeah.
Of course he is, because whatever journey he's put you on to be here today, you were obedient in that journey to where you are today.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, we all have the downs.
Yeah.
And the fact that I wanted to the reason why I want to talk about that
Yeah.
is because I know there's folks that are listening going, oh man, one day I want to be on the biggest stages doing the biggest things.
Yeah.
Sure. But there's definitely steps to get there.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what
Yeah.
age it is. You know, sometimes people get there early.
Yeah.
Sometimes people get there really late, and it's all good.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that I could sit here and say, Eileen used to sell massage chairs and be customer service for a clothing company, and she's on stages at Coachella doing choreography with like Blackpink and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's where she was, and this is where she is today.
Yeah.
Now you guys are dual entrepreneurs together doing
Yeah.
those things. It's like
Yeah.
God is so good.
Yeah.
Like it's like ridiculous. But anyway.
There's so much I could say. Oh my god. No, but just to like go off of that too, I read something on Instagram recently, and it was talking about how like everyone wants to build, but then no one wants to maintain. Yeah, I know. I was like, ooh, let me read that like 10 times. And it's just like, that's the life of entrepreneurship, right?
For
It's
sure.
like you start off just small. Like you start off not knowing where this is going. And that's like any creative endeavor, entrepreneurship is creative, you know? So it's like, hey, that's creative. So it's just like, you just start baby steps, and then you just, that's the trenches I'm talking about, is like, you know, it can look financial, it can look like just like, even outside of financially, it could just look like the uncertainty of like, am I even gonna make this happen, you know? And then trusting God with that. And then it can be even like a lot of character formation. I feel like that's like
good.
the trenches.
Character formation. I'm
It's
just gonna
like,
keep saying that over and over again.
yeah, it's just like, because you know, here's the thing. Here's what I've been dwelling on a lot lately is like, God. So we all want like more stuff. Like we're just selfish people. We're like, God, I just want to do everything. Well, so that's the Enneagram
typical
3,
prayer.
actually.
Give me more.
Maybe not everyone's like that. Maybe that's just me. I'm an Enneagram 3. Yeah, right. So yeah, so we're just like, God, I can do everything. Like I want to do everything. Like give it all to me, right? And then comes like the reality of like, nah, like what you're asking for actually comes with a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
And so that's actually a very heavy weight that you're trying to lift here. And so it's like it's just going through the character building of like showing God like, hey, I can actually handle this, and like I can be responsible. Can you trust me? You know, it's like this a relational thing, and he's not going to give it to you unless he feels like he could trust you.
Right.
But you have to go through the character building first, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I feel like I went through a lot of in
Yeah.
my early days in my career. where now I can sit and be like, you can trust me, you know, I can do more stuff, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that reminds me of the scripture where it's just like, well, like God, like if you can't be entrusted with a little, he can't entrust you with a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you said something earlier that I thought was a really interesting point, where you recognize dad, like God is dad, right? And he's a good dad. And I don't know, at least even for myself, man, I don't view God like dad often.
Yeah.
I view him as like, God, you know, you're
Like up there.
Lord of the universe, God, right? Like almighty and all of that. But I don't really like, because when I think about mom, like, yeah, my mom feeds me, she takes care of me, and she'll fold my laundry, you know what I'm saying? Things like that. So when you look at God as dad and that he's good, and you know, as parents love to give their kids what they want for Christmas, as I would imagine, birthdays, you want to give your boys like what they want, right? So there's this balance between like, Lord, your will be done, right? Like, we trust God to do whatever he feels is best for us, but then also to acknowledge he is our dad and he does care about what we want. So the things that we tell him and we ask for, he cares about that. And of course, you know, if he thinks that's good for you, then he'll bless you with it, but also there's timing. And as you guys were talking earlier about even the studio being something that you thought would come later, and so it was still a desire, but you just thought like, oh yeah, I want that, but later. But God being a good dad is saying, oh, I know you want that, but I think you need that now. You know, like, I want to give that to you now because that's better for you to have now. And you may not think that it is good now. You're like, oh, this is a little bit not on our timeline. But then also trusting, because you're my good dad, like, I'm going to trust that this is good for me to have now. And you actually gave me the thing that I wanted. You just gave it to me early, you know? So there's this like interesting trust piece that I kind of even hear as you guys are talking about this. And like, and the other side of it too is that I think, you know, for myself too, I sometimes feel bad for asking God for too much.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Lord, am I being selfish? Am I being greedy? Am I just asking you for stuff? But like, you know, God wants to know every single desire of your heart. Whether he gives you every single desire or not is up to him, but he does want to know everything that we want. So I think there is such a beautiful trust that you guys, you know, have exercised in just letting God know, even as an Enneagram 3, saying, God, give it to me all, like, give me everything at once. But letting God know the desires of your heart and then trusting him to give it to you in his timing is something that I really see that you guys have sort of harnessed and leaned into.
Yeah. And you know what's dope though? I actually thought about this today, is back before COVID, like before COVID going into COVID, I was obviously same career driven, like crazy Enneagram 3 I was. But the difference then was like I was doing everything. You guys talked about this last episode, actually. So I resonated a lot with it. But it was like I was doing everything for self. So I was like trying to strive and earn. And it's because I wasn't in a place in my career that I wanted to be, that I was like, okay, God, I want more. But then it was like, oh, I want more. Like I want to do more for myself type of thing. And what's crazy is like a lot of character formation throughout COVID happened, and like also post burnout, right? But now I can sit and be like, oh, actually, I think I want to do more, but I want to just do more for God. It's a very different heart place than what I was at back then. And so I can ask for things a lot more easily now because I know my heart posture is just for him fully. And so, and the difference is too, is now I can sit and be like, God, let's say he gives me an opportunity that I like, am so stoked about. I can sit there and be like, I'm so happy about this right now that I actually don't even need the job. Like I actually am just happy with you, God. I would have not have said that. I would have been like, can I get the job still? You know what I mean? Love you, God, but can I get
don't pay the bills.
Yeah, no, seriously. But like now it's like just completely like different. So that's like what's cool.
Woo, that is so exciting.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a great place to be.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode so far. Just to keep it real, it takes time, energy, and resources to produce this pod. If you feel led to, you can support us by donating on Cash App at Good Service Podcast.
Any amount, large or small, is truly appreciated. Thank you guys so much. We love y'all. Back to the episode. You mentioned something earlier. I wanted to go back, Diny. You said, because you know what's interesting? Like, there's like this theme that's kind of coming up like naturally as we're talking, and it's really like we keep using words that surround family a lot, which is dope. And I don't think it's an accident. You guys have a business together as sisters, and you mentioned the word home about your studio, which I thought was super dope, because you guys are more afraid of, look at all these studios shutting down. Yeah. There's no home for these folks, right? And you use that word a few times. So where do you think today, as like you guys built this home in K-Town, you have this massive community. Now they're huge. There's tons of them. I know for a fact, knowing the character, the inside out job that God has already done in both of your lives, I am so excited that you guys lead these people. Like, you guys are in a seat of literally shepherding, which is amazing.
That's interesting.
What I would love.
Never thought of it that way. I like that.
Are you guys sisters?
I know.
I know we say a lot of things at the same time. Happens all the time.
I was like, what? That's the first time I heard that. Oh yeah. So now that you guys are in this seat, that you guys have this community, I guess, like, maybe share some ways that you guys feel like either intentionally or unintentionally, you guys are kind of like shepherding these folks in the way that y'all have been taught. Do you feel that today? Are you working on that today? Or is that on your mind today? Like, I would just love to hear about that, like about the community today.
Interesting. I mean, I think even just like going to small scale, like we talked about students earlier, but even our staff, I think we've tried to create a culture where we can just let them come to us with just their life. So it's not just limited to you're in work mode and you're just working all the time, but it's like, how are you doing? Like, how is your heart place? Like, how are you feeling today? Like, what are you going through, and how can we be there for you? So shepherding looks like the way that we treat our staff too, you know? So I think those are ways that we're practically trying to implement it, but also just being a place in general where people just feel safe to be able to express and to just be themselves and to be able to share and be open and vulnerable. So I think those are the main ways.
We actually had one student tell us recently, he's like a regular, like he comes like
every day.
Literally it's crazy. Like he literally comes every day.
That's awesome.
I know, we love it. Like we love, anyway.
Every day.
Like you work and you only have so much free time and you spend it all at our studio. Like, how honoring is that?
Yeah, and like multiple classes too. Like it's dope. But he was even sharing like during COVID he was going through like major depression and like even had like suicidal thoughts sometimes. And like I feel like that was actually really common during COVID because like we're all stuck inside, like just alone with our thoughts, and we're just like spiraling all the time. And so like and it's like a lonely time, you know? So for us to have like to teach them what it means to like interact again and like have connection again, like be authentic again, like you don't have to be like this awkward, like, you know what I mean? Like just like be yourself, and like here's a place we can all chill, we can all like have fun. And like, so he literally said like, this actually like saved my life. That's great. And we're like, that's a big responsibility. But that's dope, you know, like to hear testimonies like that. That's
true. Well, I also feel like you guys create a very approachable environment. You know what I mean? Because I think, you know, if you're a non-dancer, I mean, this is just from what I hear from people who don't dance, they're like terrified of stepping into a dance class. Like it's like the craziest thing ever. And it's like, no, it's beginners. It's meant for people who don't dance. Like, you know, this is for you, you know, but it's even still, it's this like, oh, but there are other people there. Like they're going to watch me and I'm going to suck and all this other stuff. But like, I think it's the way that you guys are as people, and as you guys set the tone for the place, right? So when you greet people with the smile and you welcome them and happy to see them and encourage them with words, and then give them the space to like even have them share things like that, because that itself is difficult to do. Like who just comes up to a random person and be like, hey, like this means so much to me and here's why, because this is what I've been struggling with during COVID or whatever. And I think it's a testament to, again, who you guys are as people, that you create a space where people feel comfortable, they feel welcome, and yeah, like you guys are very approachable, and that you make dance in the space in essence approachable as well, you know. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yes,
But you know,
yes.
it's kind of tight too, is like going off of that too. I think something we talk about often is how I touched on it earlier about like us having imposter syndrome. But I think a lot of it, like it's crazy how your business, like you as a person bleeds into what the
100%.
business is.
Yeah.
Like,
For sure.
and
Yeah.
you can't curate that. Like you can't make that up. So it's like crazy because just our beginnings, it was us just being like, who are we?
Yeah.
And we're like, is this gonna be successful? Like, what is this? You know?
In
And it
LA.
was just like us, like trying to stay alive, like our head, like floating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If anyone needs a visual, but so it's like us learning how to build and overcome those things, and like the humility that comes with that, because obviously we're like so insecure about it. Like we're like, oh my god, we don't even know what we're doing. So even seeing that and seeing how it's taken years to just learn how to like do it better, but like also like, you know, like become more confident and like, and then see how God's also building it, and like us being so proud of that too. Like it's that beginnings that also kind of bleed into like understanding the environment we want to cultivate.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I love that you even mentioned that sort of keeping your head above water. That's most people. You know what I'm saying? Like, you open up Instagram and it looks very much like, wow, everyone's just successful and killing it. Like, no, most people are just keeping their heads above water, and they, you know, not to make it that it's all fake.
They just post the most
Yeah,
successful
it's
parts.
the highlights
Yeah.
of the
is.
stuff that you want to showcase.
Yep.
But in reality, most everyone is keeping their heads above water, and that's
Yeah.
just that's the attempt that everyone is doing as to why they need to keep promoting and keep marketing, is because this is the only way that we get to keep our heads above water. And I think that's really important, especially for people, I don't know, for listeners or viewers that may be looking at even us, like, you know, people who follow you guys from, you know, for your dance careers, and, you know, people who may follow us for whatever they think that we do. It's, yo, dude, we're doing our best, you know what I mean? And it literally is a leaning on God every step of the way. Like, and even, you know, as you were talking about, like, just kind of being sensitive to, you know, God's calling, and you were mentioning earlier that when things are not for simply your selfish, like, I'm just trying to elevate my career, myself, but there's a bigger purpose. So even if you sort of forfeit the job, like God, me and you, like, this is all I wanted anyway.
Yeah.
Even like this podcast, you know, Kevin and I, we had been talking about this for months before we even started it. And as we started it, we knew that the important thing was to start it versus getting it all polished and get a nice backdrop and get all our fancy cameras. And we're like, yo, it's just the content that needs to get out there, because what's going to be said and what's going to be the stories that are going to be told is the most important thing. And already we only have 2 episodes out. And then, you know, I sent the guys a screenshot of a DM that I got just yesterday. Crazy. And this person just wrote this really long DM about how just the first 2 episodes was so impactful. He's like, I don't even listen to podcasts, but he's like,
awesome.
I'm gonna be tuning in every week because I finally found 2 guys that I can relate to that are.
Shut up, bro.
Yes. I
know who
I
you
forgot
are.
his name. I think
we can't say his name out loud, but
okay.
thank you.
Yeah. We love you.
What are you doing?
But like it was basically like on a level of you know, I'm also Asian American, and to hear you guys having gone through similar struggles that I've gone through and currently go through, but you guys are like talking about it in real time and just kind of inviting people into the struggle.
Yeah.
And I was just like, praise God, because that was literally why we wanted to do this. We wanted to open up real conversations in real time, unpacking things as we're learning it, and inviting others into that, because like, I don't think that we need to showcase some perfectly packaged Christianity, because that doesn't exist.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And even for you guys in your entrepreneurial journey, but I would also want to get back into just your guys' more like background in terms of your faith journeys as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And how that plays into where you guys at as creatives,
Yeah.
as entrepreneurs, and all that. So. I'd love to hear you guys get into a little bit more of that like background of the faith journey and how that plays into everything.
Or here's a easier way to do the question, because I just don't want to, because you could probably talk about the whole thing.
So when I was born,
Not like womb to today, but like why don't we? You know what would be a great moment is. There must have been a moment where all of a sudden you were like, I'm gonna take this really serious and I love God.
Yeah.
There must have been that moment, because I'll be honest, like I'm 36 years old. That moment didn't happen until I was 35. That didn't happen. It happened very recently.
Wait, that's crazy. I didn't even know that.
Yes, because like, for me, it was head what is that called? Head knowledge.
Yeah.
Christianity, up and down Christianity, where it's like, oh, I'm good with God, praise the Lord, and then I'm just like, I'm a sinner, I hate everything, I'm gonna kill myself. Like literally, like that dark, and it goes that high and that dark, and I was living duality. I had a season where I was just faking it with everybody. I'm like, oh, I'm so good. What's up? Everyone's showing up, trying to become a deacon, whatever, like doing all that, and then partying, and doing drugs, doing whatever. Going crazy, there's that season, like everyone has different seasons, but then there's this moment where it's like, hey, this is for keeps. You know what I mean?
Dang, now that you shared all that, now I have to know your moment too. You spiced
there's gotta, I want to know, there must have been a day or a time, and I know it's there. So I love to. I'm sure it wasn't. That'd be crazy if it was the same time for them. That'd be nice. Like both of like.
Okay, we're not twins. We're sisters.
Hey, but still, you never know. But anyways, love to hear.
There's so much. Okay, well, do you want to go first?
it doesn't matter.
Okay, I'll go first. So I think for us, like
She's been itching to go
we
first.
grew up in a really conservative church, right? Which I think like we went to the same church our whole life until like high school, right?
Yeah.
Which I think was amazing because it set a really consistent childhood and like a really solid foundation. So in terms of like church being a part of our life, it was very normal, and I think it was very healthy for us. The moment where it changed for me is when I learned, we call it like, we learn our identity, right? And it's like basically what Johnny loves to preach about, but it's like the shift of like, it's not just a matter of the gospel is, oh, you're saved and by grace, and then you have to beg for forgiveness all the time, and like God barely saved you because you're so like dirty, and like, you know what I mean? It's like no, like the gospel is one of like immense and radical love, and the statement that shifted that for me was when they were like, no, you're actually not a sinner, like you're actually called righteous now, and you're actually like, you're actually adopted as a son and daughter. And so like if you're thinking of like being like royalty, right, like we call Jesus our king, like we literally say it with our mouth, Jesus is our king, and then but then when we look at ourselves, we're like, and we're the son of a king, but then we're like, oh, but then I'm like just some dirty like sinner, but it doesn't match. It's like, okay, well, if you're the son and daughter of a king, then like what are you? You're literally royalty. And it sounds so stupid, right? It sounds like crazy. Right now. Yeah, no. And then like it's crazy.
Internal like
And the reason why I wanted to go first is because like Diny actually learned all of this first, and she came home and she would tell me about like just what changes she's going through and how much God is encountering her. She comes home with like crazy testimonies, crazy stories, and I literally looked at her and I'm like, you're a heretic. She said that to me.
You're a sinner. You need to repent.
You're crazy. What do you mean?
She's like going to the closet like, oh, protect my sister. Please, Lord.
I'm sure she did.
She's a Pharisee.
Oh my God, no, seriously. Like, I thought she was crazy.
Morning prayer.
I was like, that's a whole different religion.
She's by herself.
Yeah, dude.
Oh
so
my gosh.
I literally like, I would tell her, I'm like, dude, you're crazy. Like, I don't believe that at all. Like, that's not what they taught us, you know? And so I'm so thankful for her though, because she like shifted like the whole course of life for me. So it was just the relational aspect of like mending, like, no, what does it actually mean? Like we just talked about God as our dad. Like what does that mean? What does that look like? And then it affects how we live life daily. And we talk about
What year in
entrepreneurship.
life was this, by the way?
This was maybe sophomore year of high school.
Wow.
Maybe junior year.
Early, yo.
It's pretty early, yeah. pretty early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get this until like I met Johnny. A few months ago.
Hey, it doesn't matter when, as long as it happens, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's just how, it's learning how good it is. Like, like faith should be fun. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, faith should be fun. It's not
Yeah.
boring. It's fun, you know?
Amen.
And
Say
then it
that
affects,
again. Come on.
faith
That's
is
good.
fun.
Yes,
Faith
so
is
good.
fun.
I love this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's, you know, it just affects how we live life. We talk about entrepreneurship. We talk about like our careers, whatever it is. It's all based off that, you know? So that's where it changed for me. But that's also when it changed for her. But it happened earlier for her.
Yeah. All right, Diny. What blew it up for you? That
For
you
me?
came home and was like, bah! Like, what happened?
I know, man. I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I think mine was pretty radical, actually. So, like Eileen mentioned, we did go to church our whole life. So we grew up going to church. But I think you mentioned this earlier. It was like very much like head knowledge. Like I was just told that since I was a kid. So then I just like, I didn't have any doubts. Like, oh yeah, God is there. Like Jesus is real. But then, you know, like, I think it was my freshman year of high school going to sophomore year. It was like a summer break.
I love this story.
And my friends were going to a retreat and they invited me, and it wasn't even my church. And I decided to go with them. And we went, and it's crazy because during that time period of my life, even though I was Christian, I wasn't necessarily living like a very Christian type of lifestyle. So I was feeling really like just distant from God and like Christianity, and I had this label of like how I'm supposed to be or how I'm supposed to look like. And at the retreat, it was the third day, the last night of the retreat, and the Bible study teachers were praying for all of their students. So my teacher came and she started to pray for me. And, you know, Korean culture, you're supposed to close your eyes, be respectful. You're not, she's opening her eyes, so I'm not going to like look at her, you know? So I'm just like, oh, keep my eyes closed. And so she's praying for me and she starts speaking in tongues. And I've never heard that before in my life. So I was like, oh, what is this? It's kind of weird, you know? It creeped me out a little bit.
She's a heretic.
Yeah. Well, yeah. She loves that word today.
It's my go-to.
But yeah, she started praying for me. And as she's speaking in tongues, I just like, I felt this earthquake. It was like a really big earthquake. It wasn't like a tiny one. And I got scared and I opened my eyes. I'm looking around the chapel and everything's shaking. Like I see bookshelves, the books look like they're about to fall off. On the stage, there was a guitar on a stand. It looked like it was gonna fall over, and I was like freaking out. So I started running around the whole chapel to all my friends. I'm like, what are you guys doing? It was like prayer time. So they're all like quietly praying for each other. And I'm
No
like,
one else is freaking out from this earthquake?
no. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, don't you guys feel the earthquake? Like, how are you guys sitting there praying? Like, I look crazy. I think everybody kind of looked at me all weird, and they're like, Diny, like, what's wrong? Like, is everything okay? Like, why are you acting that way? And I think at that moment, I realized that I'm the only person that felt this earthquake.
What?
And in the midst of this earthquake, I heard a voice, like an audible voice, like literally from, like, it felt like from heaven, like up there, like through the ceiling. And it was God. And it was like this thundering, powerful, majestic voice. And you know, when you think powerful and thundering, it sounds scary. But for this, it was like at the same time, like the most loving, like just comforting, like voice I've ever heard. And I've never experienced something where two such opposite characteristics of God are like in one voice. And all he said was my name 3 times. He said, Diny, Diny, Diny. And I just broke down. It's audible, like I'm actually hearing it, you know, in the midst of this chapel, in the midst of this earthquake by myself. And I think I just like literally fell on my knees and I started bawling. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for everything, you know? I just grew up hearing so much like, oh, Jesus loves you. He knows your name. He knows every hair on your head. And I heard it so much. I'm like, oh yeah, I know Jesus loves me. I know he knows my name. But I think that moment I was like, oh my gosh, like, oh shit, like he knows my name. Like he literally knows my name. And I think that made me understand like how real God is, like to that degree. Like it's a real relationship. When I pray, I'm not just like talking to something far away, but like, wow, what does it look like for him to respond to me? What does it look like to build an actual relationship with God who knows my name like that? And he went out of his way to do all of this so that I can know that he's real and he's there. So for me, that moment was very pivotal. And so things like that started happening to me, and I would go home and And she would call me a heretic.
And then I started experiencing crazy stuff too. So I think it was just like a trickle down thing.
That's wild.
Yeah,
I
so
never
that
get
was
tired of hearing that one.
You know what's dope about that story? I mean, for one, it's all like, I'm sure what you experienced, even in the stuff you just said, you've experienced crazy things, probably wasn't the exact same thing that she experienced, right? You've told me things that you sat with God, you felt like this warm light thing, and then you even said you heard God. And I hear people say stuff like that. Oh, God told me this. I heard God say this. And I'm like, I've never heard the audible voice of God. Like I've never heard it. I've never had an earthquake happen and God tell my name 3 times. I've never had that. I say that because I used to think that God was very like linear. He does what he does to everyone. So if he doesn't do it to everyone, he must not do it to anyone. I used to think that way. That's when I used to hear something like, man, like I would think heresy. Like I never experienced that. Like, so I don't think you're telling the truth. You know what I mean? And even so, all the like prophetic gifts, spiritual gifts, tongues, healing, prophecy, and all that. I'm like, well, I've never experienced that, so it must not be true. And what I've been learning is that God is so, I mean, he created us so unique, right? We all have different personalities. Different things resonate with one person that resonates with differently with another person and all the way down the line, right? And so because God made us so unique, and in the uniqueness in the way that he created us, he says we are made in his image. So that we are still made in his image, yet very unique. And I feel, and I don't know, this is where I could be wrong, and I'm down to be wrong, and I can get fact checked here or corrected, but like, I believe that God speaks to each of his children in the unique way that they need to be spoken to. And so if for you, that was how he wanted to communicate with you, and then for you is different, for you is different, for me is different. I think that's where I am now experiencing like the unique voice of God and the unique way he communicates. Like our homie, Ellen, shout out our sister Ellen. She's like, I feel like God talks to me through birds. And I was like, okay.
That sounds like such an Ellen thing to say.
And I'm like, okay. But then I was like out in nature one time, and I'm like, oh shoot, I feel like God's talking to me through that bird right there. And this happened a couple of times, you know, where you just kind of see something happening in nature, and then, you know, it's something that you feel like, wow, I think God, you wanted me to see that or experience that, and you were trying to communicate something to me through that. And so I think there's so much beauty in that. And I say even just my whole like struggle with this, because this is so recent for me to be open to this stuff. And it's not like I'm open to it because someone told me I should be open to it.
So I had to do this because he was talking about how God uniquely speaks to people. And for a while, this dude kept telling me like, yo, I think God's like speaking to me through numbers. I keep seeing it. He kept saying this, right? And I was just like, yeah, I'm sure I believe him, but I'm sure it does, but I don't know what that means because I don't go through that, right? And this, one of the podcasts, it's crazy. And then I was just like, for sure. And he's like, yo, Kev. And then he sends me the receipt of the picture of a meal that we're about to have before filming this. And we're talking about something specifically God related. And he goes, check this out. So I still have the picture to this day. It's on 6/23/23 at 1:23. Jesus served us.
Jesus. Show him the receipt.
That's crazy. Not Jesus serving you.
Jesus served us on 6/23/23 1:23. Like, it was ridiculous.
And
then we did. So here's the interesting thing about even 23, because I was like, what's the significance of 23? Well, this is 2023, right? This is the year that we're in now. And I felt at the turn of the year, you know, everybody gets excited for the new year. Oh yeah, new year, new me, new energy, blah, blah, blah. Just everyone gets excited because it's a new year. They try to hype themselves up. And at the turn of this year, I felt not like a new year, new me energy. I was just like, God, I feel like you're going to do something new this year. And I felt that he was preparing me for something new for like a decade. Because he gave me Isaiah 43:18 and 19 in 2013. And I kept just reciting or just kept reading that passage over till I committed it to memory. Basically saying, I am doing a new thing, now it springs forth. And he says, I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. Meaning a way in the wilderness is making a path where there is no path. Rivers in the desert is I'm gonna make streams of water where there is no water. So it's making the impossible possible. And he gave me that in 2013. And I just kept reading it. And then I actually forgot it for a few years. And then at the top of this year, it popped up again. And I was like, oh yeah, Isaiah 43, 18 and 19. And it just so happened to be 2023. And then I just felt God saying, and again, this is me, God didn't audibly tell me anything. He just gave me his word and just brought it back to me. And I just felt like, Lord, I think whatever this new thing that you were telling me that you were doing back in 2013, I think I'm gonna see the fruit of it this year.
Oh, wow.
And so when I saw that receipt at 123, 623.23 served by Jesus, I was like, bro. And that was a meal that we were getting for this podcast.
Wow.
Because we get a meal every show. And you know, like, it's not this magical thing, you know what I'm saying? I feel that like sometimes God just shows you things because he wants you to know that like, hey, you are in alignment with me right now. Just keep going. Just stay the course and you are on the right track. You know what I mean?
Can I speak about God's joy real quick? I know we're gonna land the plane soon, but I wanna talk about this because it was revealed to me. I took a quick family vacation recently, just like 4 days. And a lot of things happened, a lot of joyous moments, a lot of praises that I definitely want to talk about. But one moment that was so like normal and mundane that stuck out to me like crazy was last night, as we're all going to bed. My sons have a routine, we pray and we do all the good stuff, and they read a book, they go to sleep, they clean, wash, all that. And he has a nightlight on and he goes to bed. This is my 7-year-old. So we're all like going to bed now. And I close the door and I go back to my room and I hear like a ruffling in his room. So I'm just like, he's still awake. I'm like, what's he doing? You know? So, because usually that means he's like trying to like do something that he's not supposed to be doing. Yeah, sneaking around, playing with toys or whatever. So I open the door just a little bit because I want to do the gotcha moment like his dads do, you know? So I peek in and I see my son in the darkness with his nightlight on, cleaning up his room. Right? And he's like just carefully stacking his books.
Wait, that's so cute.
I'm telling you, bro, like literally. And I'm just like watching this happen, and he's just putting the books away, and he's neatly putting away his toys, like in the dark, right? And I just like open up the door and I go, hey, son, what are you doing? He's like, you want me to turn on the light? He's like, oh, it's okay, Dad, I'm almost done. I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, so what you doing? He's like, oh, I just wanted to clean up the room. I wanted to look nice for tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And
That's so cute.
I know.
In that little moment, out of the whole trip, it like burned in my memory. And the reason why, and then this also, I'm gonna try to say this without choking up. And the reason why it was so powerful to me was because in obedience, God feels love.
Wow.
And I felt that like so deep in that moment. And I was like, oh man.
That's good. It's so good.
And it made me realize in this season, as God is doing these amazing things with the people in our lives, obedience, you know? And I thought that was so good.
You know, that reminds me of like, you know, when it says like what you sow in the dark will be revealed in the light, right? And like what he's doing essentially is he was literally working in the dark.
Yeah, man.
And like, and he probably knew to some degree, like, oh, if I have a clean room, like my dad's probably gonna be happy.
Yeah.
And
That's
my
so
room's
good.
clean.
Yeah.
You know, so let me just do that in the dark when no one's watching. And that's also like, you know, this, you know, the analogy of just being in the wilderness, right? Like we can be walking in this place where we feel like it's dark, where we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, yet we just know that like this is the place I'm supposed to be, and I trust that God is gonna pull me out of this wilderness at some point. And that's that faithfulness of just sowing for years and years, you know. And you know, and I'm sure we've probably scratched the surface barely with you guys in terms of like the life story, but from what I can sense from you guys is there's years and years of sowing and being faithful, and all the years of church, and you know, all the stuff that you're like, yeah, like it took a while for all that stuff to really sink in, but then there was a point where it really sunk in, and then now you're seeing like how God is really blessing and has really taken care of you guys. And so it's just a beautiful story that y'all have, you know, just as sisters, as a family. And then also to see the fruits of like this amazing studio, this community hub, a place where people can come and find relationships, friendships, and growth. It's really dope. It's really dope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we want to acknowledge y'all for that, and thank you so much for coming through and sharing a meal with us and sharing your stories. And for those who want to follow you guys, how can people follow the Roots journey, your personal journeys?
Before we do that though, I need to encourage y'all back. You can't just give us the flowers.
Okay.
Well, I just want, because something was like, it was pressing on my mind earlier, but you're talking about Isaiah 48, and you're talking about like how that's been your word for a long time, and how you feel like it's barely coming to fruition. But the one phrase of like, make a path where there is no path, like right when you said that, I was like, that's Ben.
Yeah, he's such a pioneer.
Such a pioneer.
Whoa,
like,
you just gave me
but
chills.
it's crazy. It's like in everything you do and everything you have done, whether it's in your dancing or in your personal life or your entrepreneurial journey, like you just show that you're somebody that's doing something that other people don't do. And if you see the pattern of like people reaching out to you, they're like, hey, like I've been waiting for somebody to do this, or hey, you're like, even for me, like as a dancer, I'm like one of the very few Christian, Korean, American dancers to look up to. There's not many. You know what I mean? It's like you and Ellen, and then there's like, you know what I mean? There's like, I tell you this all the time, and like I don't even think it sinks in for him like fully all the time. But it's just like in everything you do, you're always doing something, treading new waters that other people haven't done. And so it's very powerful, and it's something you've been doing since, you know, so it's not, it's coming into fruition now, but it's also your obedience and sacrifices and choices you've made throughout, you know?
And it gives the next generation the courage to follow in the footsteps and do the same for whatever it looks like for them, you know?
Yeah. And then, Kevin, okay, there's so much I can say about Kevin. Because we're, you know, so I was listening to like the last episode, and you were sharing about how like sometimes like you're naturally sharing like what's going on in your life, and how like a lot of times it feels like boasting, and how it's like hard to feel understood, you know? Like I just want to say, like I think it's dope, like just from afar, from literally the short amount of time we've known each other, like for us to just see like all that you're doing, and like even in the midst of like crazy busyness, right? Like where you're just like, I'm running on zero right now, you guys, like pray for me, please. But there's such a grace and a favor on like what you do in your life, and like such a trust that I have when I see I'm like, oh, he's doing it God's way, but God's just like giving him so much. And so it's like, you know what I thought of earlier when we were talking? Because you're just talking about how busy you are right now, right? Or like just you just ended that season. And like I was like, oh my God, it's like Jesus feeding the 5,000. It's like, it's literally like, no, you know why? Because I'm like, okay, think of all these disciples, right? And then God is like, I mean, Jesus is like, hey, like, can you go feed them? And then like, no one thinks about how tiring that is for the disciples.
True.
I actually thought about, I was like, when you were telling me, I was like, dude, he's like a disciple, because it's such a mission, and it's such an honor for Jesus to give us that role and to take a part in what he's doing. Like that's beautiful. But then all these 5,000s are like, they're happy, you know? Like literally, you literally serve 5,000 people. Literally. This past weekend. You actually did that. So it's like such a tiring thing, but then it's like, you know, that doesn't go unnoticed, you know? It's all a part of the plan, a part of his mission too.
And it's an opportunity to just partner in the miracle that God's doing in these people's lives.
Okay, and then so about the boasting thing, I think it's dope that we get to have friends like this where we can just like hype each other up though. Like I think that's dope. Like because it's we actually talked about the same thing like this past week of like it's hard to share. It's easy to share what you're like the negative things you're going through, because then people are going to have empathy and they're gonna be like, I'm so sorry you're going through that. But sometimes it's hard to share, like, dude, God is this good that like every day is like a new thing, like is like these dope things are happening, but like actually like to remind ourselves like, no, God is that good, and like to have people be there to support you. Like, we're receiving it from you guys, but like we also want to be the same for you guys too.
To just celebrate wins together.
Yeah. Like, that's community, right?
That's dope.
That's breaking bread.
Literally.
So
That's breaking bread.
that's good service.
Yeah, that is good service.
Yes.
Good service.
That is good service.
So anyway.
Well, you mentioned, I actually almost forgot.
Yeah.
We got to land this plane, but good service is the name of the show, and I think everybody can have their own sort of definition as to what that means. So what does good service mean to you guys?
Maybe good service for me looks like giving somebody your best, like intentionality.
Love that.
Yeah.
It's good.
Good service to me, I think the word that keeps coming up is overflow. It's like when I'm healthy and I'm grounded in God, I have the overflow, and it could look different in every season too. But it's like the extra capacity for like a little more forgiveness, or a little more grace, or a little more quality time with this person, or a little more,
Love that.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
How can people follow you guys? Follow the journey.
I'm mainly on Instagram, so you can find me at Eileen Kim with 4 E's, so it's EILEEEENKIM. Yes.
Yes. Mine's just my name, Diny Kim, DINY Kim.
And Roots Dance Studio.
Yes.
Okay,
That-
cool.
you can
Yeah,
also
we'll
find us
plug
on
all that.
Instagram.
We'll plug all that. Thank you guys so much for coming through. This was so
Thank you.
fun.
Thank you.
This was like not long enough, so we'll probably have to do a part 2 with y'all.
Heck
So
yes.
we'll,
Anytime,
we'll
any
get
day.
in again.
The food was bomb too.
It was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shout
I
out
have to
Cooks
say.
Tortas.
We didn't really give it a review, but it was bomb.
Yeah, very bomb.
Thanks, Cooks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Folks, thank you for tuning in, watching, and or listening. Make sure you like and subscribe. Follow us so you don't miss an episode. And write us reviews, comments. Let us know you're listening. Tag us in your posts. We love to regram all that stuff.
Send long DMs.
Long DM, dude. I love the long DMs, man. I read them all, and I respond to them all too. So that's it. That's it. Good service. Yo, peace. Thank you for listening to this episode. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe, and leave us that 5-star rating. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Good Service Pod, and on YouTube at Good Service Podcast.
And if you'd like to support us, you can donate on Cash App at Good Service Podcast. Thank you. Peace.